So let's begin. Once again, for those of you who've just arrived, I'm Trudy. I'm the founding teacher here at InsightLA. And we're, let's see, it's 2021 almost, which means in the fall it will be our 19th birthday. So we're getting close to 20 years of InsightLA, which is hard to believe. Sometimes I feel like I just moved to California. Anyway, for those of you who might be new to the Sunday morning sitting group, we're going to sit for about a half an hour and I will do some guided meditation during that sit, but there'll be plenty of silence as well. Then we have some teachings and then some chance for conversation together. So that's our morning. And then at 12:30, for some of you who are interested in being part of a smaller group and getting to know people in a way that's pretty hard when we're not in person together, we have after a break at 12:30, we have some breakout groups. You can get your lunch and then meet with a small group for a while, as long as you want, and just get to know each other. So we'll begin by sitting together, by doing some meditation, whether you're sitting, standing, or lying down. If you are going to be walking and doing a walking meditation, I would ask you to just cover your camera while you're moving, because that can be distracting for people who don't close their eyes all the way. So when you're ready, just relaxing back into whatever posture you like. And while you settle in and just rest your attention for now with the movement of a breath, taking a few deep breaths, I'm going to go get my earpods, which I forgot. I'll be right back. So receptivity, receiving the breath, receiving the moment. And just as we begin, we offer a friendly wish for all beings to be free from suffering, remembering that we too are part of all beings, and for all beings to know happiness and the causes of happiness. And this is why we meditate. And just receiving this regular movement, ebb and flow of the breath in the body. Allowing the breath to move in its own natural rhythm. And bringing a kind of intimate body awareness to how it is for you sitting here in this body. Allowing the movement of the breath to steady our attention and awareness. This reliable, predictable activity of breathing. Breathing in the aliveness of the body, the aliveness of this moment. The aliveness of consciousness, of awareness. And with each out breath, releasing any tension, relaxing completely.
with mindfulness, aware of the arising and passing away of each breath, of the sounds of life around you, appearing and fading away. Of the dance of sensation in the body, always here and now, and always changing moment from moment. And when the attention gets swept away into the past or the future, or when there's some restlessness or sleepiness or distractedness, dullness, whatever's happening, the moment that mindful awareness, your loving awareness, notices that moment, we're here, present, fully present, beginning again. And bringing some tender curiosity to experience. Your beginner's mind, as if you're just meeting yourself for the first time. Who is this being? Kindly inquiring, who is it that I call myself? And when you notice, if you notice being lost in thought, Just gently shifting the body back, maybe just a half an inch or an inch. Just moving back slightly and sensing a subtle relaxation in the facial muscles in the body. Just relaxing back into this posture of receptivity. Gently breathing in loving awareness and breathing out that gentle kindness. You can drop Ram Dass's phrase, I am loving awareness, into your heart, or just the words loving awareness. And as we close our meditation, I'd like to read you a poem from one of the first early Buddhist nuns. Her name is Genta. She says, and remember, she's talking about her meditation, her practice. I was forever getting lost until one day the Buddha told me, to walk this path, you will need 7 friends. We spent some months this past year studying the elements of awakening, these 7 elements. And these are the 7 friends she's talking about. To walk this path, you'll need 7 friends: mindfulness, curiosity, courage, joy, calm, stillness, and perspective. For many years, these friends and I have traveled together, sometimes wandering in circles, sometimes taking the long way round. There were days when I thought I couldn't go on. There are days when I thought I was beaten. It's scary to give all of yourself to just one thing. What if you don't make it? Oh, my heart, you don't have to go it alone. Train yourself to practice just a little more gently. Yeah, so when you're ready, gently opening your eyes. If you're moved to do that, don't need to, but you can. This has been a really intense week. What a Christmas week this has been. We started out Monday with this, well, actually, it's over a period of a few days, this great conjunction, they call it, this cosmic conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn. I don't know how many of you got to see it. There was the night before the actual merging visually was a clear night here, and a neighbor had a birding scope out, and I was actually able to see all the little dots, the moons of Jupiter and the golden Saturn with the rings around it. I just kept thinking of all those pictures we saw in school, and there they are in the sky. It was very magical. And that same night, there was a conversation for the board members of Mind and Life with His Holiness, the Dalai Lama. And I'm not on the board, but I'm related to somebody on the board. Jack is on the board. So I got to listen to this conversation. And, you know, some of what he said, really, it just felt so appropriate for this week. And because this week, yes, there was the astronomical event. And there was also an InsightLA community gathering and ritual for letting go of our centers, which is huge, of our physical space at Olympic and on Melrose, and envisioning the future together and offering our first annual Big Heart Award to our landlady at Olympic, who has been such an incredible support over the 12 years that we've been there, including not charging us a penny of rent from March until the end of the year. Really so generous. And, you know, then we had a Christmas Eve meditation with Broadway performers singing songs for us. And that was really meant to be a chance for, you know, a joyful gathering and a celebration on Christmas Eve for those of us who are not, most of us, not able to go and see families and be together. So many people, so lonely at this time. And listening to those songs was a chance, I don't know, I guess I must have needed to cry or something about everything that's happened, you know, knowing that every 10 minutes somebody is dying in LA County of COVID, and that we still don't have pandemic relief and all of these things that, although I didn't know that night, that we wouldn't have the relief, but we're still waiting. And so this is a hard time, you know, it's a hard time. And the Dalai Lama, he said, when people were greeting him, somebody remarked, actually it was Susan Wu, the chair of the board, the executive director, I guess, of Mind and Life. She said to him, you know, Your Holiness, you're looking really good. And he said, I just loved this. He said, yes, he said, my face, you know, I'm not only quite young looking, but I'm also very beautiful. And I thought, How many of us could say that? Do you feel that way about yourself? I hope you do. I hope you do. But I just loved it. Yes, I'm quite young looking for my age, and actually I'm also very beautiful. And he went on to say, the problems we're having are our own creation. But why are they our creation? Nobody wants to have problems, right? Nobody really wants to. But he said, unless we cultivate and develop genuine peace of mind through our own practice, it's not enough to pray for it. We need to really, we need to practice being present with all the things that are arising in our hearts, the sadness, the loneliness, the disappointment, the dread, the joy, the love, the sense of anticipation of things getting better, all of the things that may be happening. All beings, not just human beings, need love and need kindness and need to be free from fear of being hurt. And he really talked about how this begins with us, each one of our hearts, each one of our individual minds, and that taking care of each other is a matter of our own survival. He really was so clear about that, and he's just looking for ways to wake everybody up, to wake up humanity. And I also shared, I don't know how many of you came for the Christmas Eve event, but I shared with everybody there that I had an insight about Christmas, probably about 40 years ago. This was raised Jewish, not very tuned into Christmas, although it was time when family gets together, but certainly not tuned into the spiritual significance or meaning of Christmas, or feeling connected to Jesus at that time. And it was 1976 or 7, I can't remember the exact year, but I was at a Zen retreat, a session, a 7-day intensive silent meditation retreat. And it was held, this was a Zen Buddhist retreat with a Zen master presiding. That was held in a Christian monastery, a Trappist monastery outside of Boston in Spencer, Massachusetts, Spencer Abbey. And the abbot of the monastery at that time was Father Thomas Keating, a wonderful, wonderful, he passed away, I think, a couple of years ago, very ripe old age. And Father Thomas studied Buddhist meditation, specifically Zazen, Zen meditation, because he wanted to revitalize the Christian contemplative prayer tradition that had been kind of lost. And he created something called centering prayer. And it's very similar to the meditation that we do, but in a Christian context. And because this was a holiday retreat and it was over Christmas, he celebrated a Mass for us. And he set out all the ritual objects necessary for celebrating the Mass. And we had emptied the big room, which probably used to be their living room or something at the Abbey, but all the furniture was out. So it was just an empty meditation room. And he just put everything right on the floor in the middle of the room and celebrated a Mass. And it was not the first time I had been to Mass, because I went to school. My dad worked at the Institut Pasteur in Paris, so I had been to French school and I had been to the cathedrals, but this was the first time, probably because we'd all been meditating for days in silence. It was the first time that I saw, because it was Christmas and it was about the birth of Jesus, I saw, oh, this is about each one of us, our own divine birth. You hear that expression, children of God. And, the significance of Jesus, as I understand it, is that, this was a divine birth, and this was God sent in human form to uplift and awaken humanity. And in that moment, I saw, okay, we're all born we all go through birth. And that was one of the most amazing things for me to discover when I was laboring and giving birth. I couldn't believe it. I was like, every single woman goes through this who has a child. Everybody who's, I remember standing on a crowd at a crowded street corner in New York once, waiting for the light to change and looking around and thinking, oh my God, every single one of these people in the street, was born. And I know that might just sound completely obvious to you, but it was actually a moment. And then understanding that Mary, in her laboring, in her bearing this baby, this holy baby that each one of us once was, that she was really bearing hope for the future and laboring to give birth to somebody who represents our hope for a more just and fair and peaceful and loving, egalitarian, inclusive, equitable world. So this was my understanding of Christmas, and I really have pretty much loved Christmas, and felt, I can have my true nature. Sure, I practiced Buddhism all my life, like many of you have, but I can have Jesus in my heart, and Mary, and the God of all worlds that we hear about in the synagogue. And we can really, we can take part in, even as we're different and we have different beliefs, we can really take part in appreciating that every single life is deserving of kindness, that every single life matters, that is deserving of compassion from their community, every life, and of unconditional love. That every life, like the Dalai Lama's face, is potentially very beautiful. So anyway, I wanted to share, this was my Christmas insight that I wanted to share with you. And he says, loving kindness is expressed in community. This means community of our families. I mean, none of us know, we did our meditation with the breath and allowing the breath to breathe us this morning. And really, none of us knows how many more breaths we get to breathe. Can we breathe each one consciously, mindfully? Of course, nobody can do that 24/7, but how are we going to use our breaths in this life? How are we going to use our aliveness? What is our intention for how we want to use our aliveness? And at this time in our lives, it's such a hard time, a liminal time. We're on the cusp of change, but it hasn't happened yet. And at this time, maybe we're just using our practice and our life and our breaths to stay sane. And maybe that's a huge thing, depending on your circumstances. And of course, this is why we meditate, to stay sane, to stay grounded, to stay present with the messiness and the practicalities of our everyday life, while at the same time, as I was saying in my little weekly blog, while at the same time being aware of the mysterious vastness that you can see through a telescope, that you can see in your own heart when you take time to be quiet, to meditate, perhaps do a retreat. An ancient sage said, the only thing more vast, and I'm reading from my blog, the only thing more vast than the starry sky is the inner world of our hearts and minds. And mindfulness and meditation bring them together. The vastness of, outer space and galaxies and universe, and the vastness of silence that we can touch to in our own hearts. And looking at the sky, it doesn't have to be some fantastic cosmic event, but just looking at the sky, looking at the clouds, it helps me calm down. It helps me stay present and a little more sensitive to the people and things and creatures and plants and everything around me. And this is, this is again why we practice, to have that sense, to cultivate that sense of wonder and sensitivity to the world around us. I quoted the Apollo astronaut Edgar Mitchell, who he was looking at Earth from the moon in 1971. And he spoke to what happens when you have that sense of vastness. And he said, you develop an instant global consciousness, a people orientation, and an intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, and a compulsion to do something about it. And what I understand about that phrase, the intense dissatisfaction with the state of the world, is that he's really pointing to when we really do open our hearts, we feel compassion and we care, and we feel the suffering of the world, and we feel the injustice, and we feel the people, we feel for the people who've been in one way or another turned away from society, marginalized and exploited or oppressed. We feel this, and we want to do something about it. So here is where we do something about it. We work with ourselves, we develop our own ability to find peace of mind and heart more and more of the time. As we practice, we get better at being able to access those states. And then as we do this, and it's not like I have to be perfectly calm and still and peaceful before I can help anybody else. Of course, it's a simultaneous process, just like we're simultaneous, we are all parts of each other, which we don't often see. We feel, especially in these times of lockdown and being told to stay home, we feel isolated, we feel separate from each other. And we forget that that we really are one. And I don't mean one in the sense of like sticking us all in the blender and homogenizing us to all be the same, because clearly we're not, and we're not meant to be. I mean it just in the sense of becoming many becoming part of each other and holding all of that in the same heart. That's really, that's what I'm talking about. So I have, let's see. Yes, along those lines, I want to share one more poem and then open up to you and your comments. This poem is from, again, one of the early Buddhist nuns. And I'm using this translation that's pretty recent by Maddie Weingast, who happens to be a man, actually. And it's called The First Free Women, Poems of the Therigatha, the early Buddhist nuns. My all-time favorite translation, I like a lot of what's in here. My all-time favorite translation is by Susan Murcott from, again, maybe, 30 years ago, called The First Buddhist Women. But I'm just thinking now, since I mentioned people who are exploited or marginalized, this is a poem of a woman who was a sex worker and then joined the Buddhist community. My mother taught me how to sell my youth for money and some sense of power, just as her mother had taught her. At our front door, I answered the calls of passing men with well-rehearsed lines, laughing and lightly running a finger along my neck and breasts, a hunter with a baited trap. Now I spend my days sitting at the foot of this tree, wearing only a shaved head and a robe. The legs of this naked mind spread open, ready to welcome whatever comes. Because that's what it takes to develop real peace of mind. We have to be ready to welcome whatever comes. And that's why we practice this. Sometimes, it's sometimes really difficult or boring or we have resistance to sitting with ourselves, but we do it, and we do it time and time again, and we keep doing it, and we come together to encourage each other to keep doing it, because it's not easy to sustain a practice. It can be actually quite lonely and even kind of depressing, always practicing by oneself, unless you have a vocation, a real vocation for solitude. But most of us, we like to be together. And so we practice communally like this to encourage ourselves so we can keep going. So this is some of what I want to share with you this morning, with everybody. And I want to remind you, as I open up for some reflections, Q&R, questions and reflections, questions about your practice and reflections, that if you spoke last week, maybe just step back and see who might want to come forward. So we're practicing that stepping forward, stepping back. It doesn't mean you can never speak again, but just taking a moment to see who might step forward, who doesn't usually ask a question or offer a reflection. And then you can raise your hand in the participant function at the bottom, and Kathleen will call on you, and you can unmute yourself whenever you're ready. And Tara has her hand up, I can see.
Hi, Trudy.
Hi. Let me put
I
you
was
on a quick
wondering.
speaker so I can see your face better.
Sure.
Okay, hi.
Hi. So I've been meditating for a while in mindfulness, and I'm just wondering what would be a good entry point to learn more about Buddhist meditation, the Buddhist principles. I was wondering if you could maybe shed some light of a good way to
Yeah,
learn more.
sure. We have a program at InsightLA, but it's a year-long program, so it's a big commitment called, we call it D2D, dedicated to the Dharma, for people who really have been meditating for a number of years, who really feel dedicated to the practice, um, and not dedicated to Buddha, to an ism from another culture or an era, but the dedication is to developing your own awareness, to developing that peace of mind. And I don't know when the next round of that begins, but I would go on the website and check, because I don't know if it starts on January or in the summer or in the fall. I don't know how that works, but you can check. And also there are classes that are called, they're in the category of Buddha's Path. And those are classes where you can learn some Buddhist psychology and philosophy that you actually, I really recommend that you do it. I'm glad you asked this question. I recommend it because it's very helpful. You see, oh, these are the elements of experience that we all have, but it just helps to know that you're not alone, and that there are actually methods and tools and ways to work with all the quirks and tendencies of our minds.
Well,
So
thank
yeah,
you.
check out Buddha's Path and see what's under there.
Okay, great. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
I see Rebecca, you have your hand up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hello.
Thanks, Kathy.
Hi, Trudy. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Rebecca. How come I can only see Kathy and not Rebecca big?
You have speaker, that the speaker will get big when you.
Anyway, you're not getting big, but I can see you.
Okay.
And I can certainly hear you well.
Okay. Anyway, so my partner and I were talking about, we were just questioning we were doing a really short little guided meditation, I think that Jack did maybe years ago, I don't know, that we were listening to, and it was talking about karma, and I didn't really think this question out, so it's not going to be so perfectly articulated, but it's something like, there was some idea about, you can't change what's going on to other people. You can only talk about your own. You can only think about your own actions and reactions. But there was something about how other people, they're responsible for their own actions and their own karma. And we were really questioning, like, well, what
Oh,
about all
yeah.
the people in the refugee camps, or the people that don't have,
Yeah.
hard, like, suffer, all the people that are suffering? I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure it's a common question, but we just wanted to hear what the response to
Yeah,
that.
no, it's a great question. That's a great question, and it's very clear. You articulated it very clearly. So what I'm guessing that Jack was teaching was a meditation on perspective or equanimity.
I think it was like
And
5 minute equanimity.
yeah, yeah, because part of the equanimity meditation is that phrase, you are the owner of your own karma, or you are the owner of your own life situation. Your happiness or unhappiness depends on your actions or the choices you make, not on my wishes for you. And what that's pointing to is not, if you're in a refugee camp, that's the result of your own karma and your own action, and it's your fault. It's not obviously saying that. That would be the opposite of compassionate. What that's pointing to is, let's say, I have a member, which I had, a member of my family who's experiencing addiction, who's suffering from an addiction and is really caught in it. And I need to, and I can learn this in Al-Anon too, I need to understand that no matter how much I want that person to be in recovery and to do the things that would, help them recover, whether or not they do recover is up to them. It's their choice. They have to make certain choices and do certain things to get better. So it's actually really a way of, Rebecca, establishing a boundary, because the loving kindness practice dissolves boundaries. We start to feel connected, deeply connected to each other. And sometimes that boundarylessness can tip into the inability to set limits when we need to in relationship, when somebody is maybe being self-destructive or harmful to us, and to understand the limits of our own power in relation to somebody else. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes perfect sense, but it doesn't seem to address the whole notion of, the vast suffering of others.
Right,
Like, may all
right.
beings be happy? Yeah. But it's
Well, I think first of all, I just want to say the Buddha was really clear that trying to understand um, the causes and effects of, like, why somebody else suffers, why I suffer and you don't, why I'm in a refugee camp and you're comfortable in your nice house, you didn't have to flee your home, why is that? And he said those questions they're one of 4 categories of sort of metaphysical questions that he called the imponderables, and he said they will drive you crazy because you can't know, because the causes and conditions are so intricate and so vast. And then there's not just individual karma, there's group karma, there's collective karma. You know what I mean? There's like bigger and bigger circles of, and nobody can really answer that question. Like, why? Why do people of a lighter color in Sudan, well, I'm thinking of Darfur because those are the refugees I'm the closest to, why do the lighter people attack and kill the blacker people? They're in the same country, and it was really a lot about race, that extermination or attempted genocide of the Darfuris. And we can see this stuff writ all over the globe, and I don't know how to understand it. But I do know that the more we actually turn toward each other and not away from each other, the more, and there are people way skillful at this, the more people develop the capacity for conversation and dialogue and listening across these immense differences, um, the more chance we have of connecting around our shared humanity. And Van Jones talks about that in his book a lot, about working with really opposing, disparate groups who hate each other and then finding ways to help them connect through their shared humanity. So, may all beings be happy isn't just pie in the sky affirmation when we, pasting a smiley face on top of the world's agony. It's really trying to incline every breath, every intention, every action, every word in that direction of that which will bring more happiness, more kindness, more understanding, more love, if that makes sense.
Yeah. There you can see I'm giving profile. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Bernard, I see your hand up. Unmute yourself.
Okay, yes, thank you. I enjoyed the meditation very much this morning, and I'm so pleased that you went into the question of who am I? Because I've been trying to use that, and it seems to me like it's a thought experiment in which I come up with some answer to who I am, and then I knock it down. But it just seems like a lot of thinking and analysis, which is, I think, what I want to avoid when I'm meditating. So I'm wondering how to feel that question while
So
I'm meditating.
you actually pointed to, when you said, all these answers arise to who am I? And
Yeah,
all of us can find those answers, right? I'm
yeah,
a mother, I'm a grandmother, I'm a wife, I'm a sister, I'm a this or that. And then we can get more and more subtle and more into the subtleties of who we are and different contexts. But then that's kind of like whack-a-mole, the thought of this
yeah,
comes up and then you have to knock it down and knock it
yeah,
down. And actually what the focus is not on the answer. The focus, and I've shared this before. I'm going to just do it again because
okay.
it's how it was my first. This was my first meditation teacher, Bernard, and this is how he taught us. He didn't
Yeah,
teach us mindfulness of breathing or anything like that. We were to sit with the question, "What am I?" You could say, "Who am I?" But who tends to bring up the more personal identity attachments, whereas what for me was a more like, ooh, what is this? Matter, what is this? Energy, what is this? And he taught us like this. He showed us our meditation posture. You can't see me, but if I had my legs crossed, not in a chair and my hands, in the mudra, and we were to say, this is how he said, what am I? Like, just, and then he told us the answer. Don't know. So that's what he was pointing to, the inquiry, not the answer, and the inquiry.
okay.
And he said, the example he used, he said, it's like if you're looking, let's say, you misplace your wallet, you're going to go out and you're looking for your wallet. You don't walk from room to room saying, where's my wallet? Where's my wallet? Where's my wallet? Repeating it like a mantra. You just look for your wallet. So it's the looking, it's the inquiry, it's the willingness to delve into what you don't know and get a little more comfortable resting in that space of not knowing, because that's a doorway into the mystery of being. So if you can practice a little bit that way. And he also said, and this is relevant for all of us, no matter what practice we're doing. He said, you fall down 100 times and you get up 101 times. And I would say falling out of awareness, meditating 100 times would be a very low estimate.
Yeah,
But we come back. And Sharon is always brilliantly teaching about how we can, begin again. We can begin again.
Well, that helps. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Yeah, you're welcome. And as we approach the new year, we really need to keep that in mind about beginning again. So who's next, Kathy?
Thanks, Bernard. Yeah, we have a lot of questions, so try and keep them brief as you guys can. Colette, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Trudy.
Hi, Colette.
I don't know if this is a really strange question, but I've been meditating for about a year now, and sometimes in my practice, when my mind wanders, I can bring it back. But other
Good.
times I have like, it's like a video going. And
Mhm.
it is not thoughts. It's just random video that I have absolutely no control over. And
Right.
it's hard to come back from that. I mean, is this completely abnormal? Like, do I
No.
need help?
Well, you may need help, but not for this. This is completely normal. and you know, from the meditation, from the perspective of the meditation that we do, this mindfulness and insight meditation, thoughts can come as images in the mind. Like it sounds like you've got caught in the TikTok video stream of images. You know, thoughts can come as images. They can come as something you hear. They can come as, you know, verbal thoughts. They can come in lots of ways. And if you're a visual person, your thoughts are coming as videos. They're not thoughts that are verbally articulated. And they may not have anything to do with anything that you care about or have seen before. Just as many of the thoughts, if you're really listening to your thoughts, I mean, it's some of them, it's like speaking in tongues. Wait a minute, I that's not me. Where did that thought come from? You know, so how to disentangle from that? As soon as you realize this is perfectly normal, this is just a kind of thinking that's happening, you can drop your awareness into the body, feel the sensations in the body, get grounded, listen to sounds around you. You know, open your eyes and look at the sky. If you're by a window, you can get grounded in just being here now. Because it doesn't have that extra layer of worry that there's something wrong with your brain or something. I don't know what you were worried about, but whatever it is, you can let it go.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Colette. Nicholas, you're up. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
That was really sweet.
You're still muted.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question. Trudy, hi, good morning.
Hi, Nick.
Hi. Last week you spoke about being a human being in this universe is an extremely rare event, and that we have the possibility of transforming consciousness. Could you just elaborate on that a little more? I'm just curious what's that kind of about?
Yeah, so what that was about, and Colette, look at the chat because people are speaking to you in it. What that was about, Nick, was, well, wait, let me just ask you, where's that question coming from in you? Before I start,
Well, okay.
you know, because maybe I want it to be about you.
I've had, well, you know, this lifelong, and really has been lifelong kind of obsession with trying to understand both the human consciousness and the larger consciousness of the whole universe, if there is a larger consciousness of the whole universe, and how the two relate to each other. You know, it's kind of a question that keeps going back and forth. And I'm just, you know, keep on looking for answers. And sometimes when doing meditation, or just while I was standing in the garage the other night, just doing some stuff, and I just finished up. And I just felt so calm and peaceful. And it's like I could have been anywhere, anytime. And here I was in the garage. And it was just like,
yes. Yes. Now, in that moment, Nick, in that moment, there you were, just in the garage. Nothing else had to be happening. You weren't longing to be anywhere else, even though you were only in the garage.
Yeah.
But, you know, you had a moment of complete, peaceful, content being. And in that moment, that's where you connect with the essence of being, you see, where you're not distracted. You're just in the garage. And
Right.
you're not wishing you weren't in the garage because you just finished doing something, you're satisfied. And that feeling of satisfaction or contentment, that's peaceful.
Yeah.
You know, when that's peace of mind. It's not something else. I don't know about you, but early in my practice, I would hear these teachings and phrases, and my mind would always make them be something out there, not something that I knew about in my own experience. And yet we all know, we've all had moments, we've all had glimpses, and that was a moment for you.
Right. Right.
Thank you for telling us about it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
That was wonderful. We had a question in the chat. With this new year coming, would you recommend a meditation retreat for beginners? I'm thinking of signing up for one, but not sure if it's appropriate given my limited experience.
Okay. Yes. First of all, yes, I recommend a meditation retreat for beginners. I definitely do. It's one of the best things that you can do for your meditation practice. And your meditation practice is one of the best things that you can do for yourself. And actually for all those around you as well. Because the more you get to know yourself and the more you get to be at peace with who you are, inevitably, the more you are accepting of others and less judgmental, or when judgments arise, you don't get so caught in them because they do come up. And so a meditation retreat right now is a great thing to do because you don't have to go anywhere special. You don't have to eat the food they give you. You can be at home. You can eat the things you like to eat. You can sit in your comfortable spot. You can sleep in your own bed. All these advantages to a home retreat that make it, I think, more integrated. It's kind of like Bernard's moment of peace in the garage. You know, you don't have to be in a special meditation center you have teachers who will come to your home. This is, of course, one of the great things about technology, that we're here together like this in our own homes. I like to say in our natural habitats. I get to see each other that way. And that's very integrated. It helps us integrate the meditation practice into our everyday life because we're doing it at home. In fact, I would even recommend there's a home retreat. I think it's just 3 days with Lisa Ernst and David Cabrera that's coming up January. It's a New Year's retreat, January 30th. And Lisa is the first the first student to whom I gave authorization to teach. She practiced with me and my husband, my former husband, for many years, and then stayed and continued practicing with me after he and I went apart. And she's the leader of the first Insight Meditation Dharma group in Nashville called One Dharma. She's also been a Zen student like me. So it's kind of a hybrid, like InsightLA in some ways. And so I really recommend that you go to this retreat. And because with the other thing about a home retreat, you can just make your own schedule. And the schedule is much easier to follow than at a retreat center. It's usually much more gentle because of Zoom fatigue, you know. So yes. And if you are interested in knowing more about what can happen on retreat, you could also read Lisa's blog. It was last week, actually. And she wrote about her own experience of going to retreat for the very first time as a beginner, except, you know, she was going to a meditation center and following a schedule, you know, from 5 a.m. till 9 p.m. And so it was very intensive Zen retreat. It was actually with my husband, George. And she had a life-changing experience in that retreat. She went in for a meeting with the teacher. She was covered with, she wanted to be, you know, of course, we all want to be the good student, but instead she burst into tears. She was covered in shame. And he was so, so compassionate and kind and gentle with her. And she had never experienced that and been that way toward herself when she was upset. You can have life-changing experiences, but you can also just develop your meditation practice. And it's much easier to meditate daily when you have had a chance to do some retreat practice. So it's a way of strengthening your practice. I could do a whole talk about this, but I know there's still questions. Sam has been waiting patiently, and we can talk more about this too next week, Kathy.
Sure, Sam, you want to unmute yourself?
I think Jeff was ahead of me. Jeff?
Oh,
I can go if you want, or you can go. I don't mind. One of us.
Jeff, let's let Sam go first and then you go, because you and I talk more often.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure in case we ran out of time. Hi, I'm Trudy.
Hi. Hi.
The meditation. So this is kind of a functional question. I've been meditating pretty much on and off for about 15 years. I do a lot of like intentional paced breathing, you know, pseudo meditations and such. When I'm given an instruction during a guided meditation for kind of an unpaced, or I try to do it on my own, you know, sort of natural breathing, my breathing becomes more labored. So like seems like there's sort of an anxiety kicking in, and it's like a more labored breathing than, you know, shorter breaths than I ever really experience in you know, day to day, moment to moment. So the waters become a little choppy, and I realize I can, you know, I can lean into it and try to work with it. Is this like a common phenomenon? And do you have any?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very common. It's common. In fact, in the sutras, in the ancient texts that give instructions about meditation with the breath, they often will say things like, notice if the breath is short and choppy, if it's ragged or smooth, if it's, in other words, all these different qualities are totally normal. The breath expresses, I think, our emotional state. And so it may be that when you're meditating on your own and you sit down to do that, I don't know, because I don't know you, but it may be that just being alone and meditating like that brings up a little bit of anxiety, because you don't know what you're going to encounter. I mean, I've certainly been through many times like that in my practice, where I even avoided meditating because I was afraid of what I might feel. So it's perfectly normal.
Yeah, I mean, I do a lot of solo, but yeah, if I sort of have counted breaths, you know, at a pace, at a rhythm, then it's no problem. But yeah, it seems to be, yeah, and I guess it's just good to work with and try to figure out how to navigate, just like pain or anything like that.
Exactly. And if you know, when you talk about paced breaths, I mean, one thing you can do is, if it gets to the point where it's really uncomfortable and you're feeling like you can't catch your breath, you can either shift your attention to sound or just sensations in the hand. You know, you can just take a break, like touch and then go. That's a perfectly good practice. You can also, if you're counting breaths, because that soothes you and you know how to do it, you can do it like this, like, can you hear me? It's a little whisper.
Yeah.
See, so you're keeping the breath company the whole length of the breath with your attention.
Okay.
And that's, you know, that's another way you can work with it and just see what happens.
Okay, cool.
Good luck. Yeah, let us know.
Will
Okay.
do.
We have just a minute, Jeff. 2 minutes.
Okay.
And by the way, I did get your email and I will respond.
Thank you. I just noticed when you made you during the meditation, you talked about remembering I am loving awareness, or just saying to yourself, or just saying loving awareness. And I just observed such a difference. I have such a resistance to saying I am loving awareness. It feels like I'm saying something that I want but isn't there. Whereas saying loving awareness feels fine and feels like, okay, this is something good in the world.
Yeah.
Same like saying, looking in the mirror and saying, I love myself, I find very hard to do, but I can say, may I love myself. So I just had that observation, and I'm wondering if I should be doing the I love myself, I am loving, and deal with the discomfort of that, or if I'm not
No.
ready.
That's not like some higher thing that you should practice and get ready for. I mean, the way that Ram Dass teaches it, and that is a teaching that I take from Ram Dass, the way that Ram Dass teaches it is you begin by saying to yourself, like almost in your head, I am loving awareness, and you repeat it like a mantra. And then when you just kind of drop into the heart and just loving awareness, loving awareness, loving awareness. So you see, that's actually where for him, and I think it's a great description. He says the whole spiritual path is the movement from the head into the heart. So you're there. You don't have to bring it back up into your head. You're there. Just stay with what touches your heart.
Yeah. The saying, we're out of time.
I am is extra.
Yeah. Okay.
And you're not like the Dalai Lama. You don't look at yourself and say, I am very beautiful. Most of us don't, Jeff, say that when we look in the mirror, just so you know you're not alone. And if you want to aspire to that, that's sort of your own practice. You know what I mean? That's, I don't know. I think you can be kind to yourself and gentle with yourself without necessarily being comfortable looking in the mirror and saying, I'm really, really beautiful and I love myself to bits. That's fine if you feel it, but you don't have to contrive or fabricate it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you. It does.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So let's just sit for a minute. And I noticed that Kathy put in the chat about donating to InsightLA. And sure, we really always need and appreciate your support. I talked last week about our letting go of our physical centers, and it's not a sign that InsightLA is about to die or anything. It's really a matter of survival and supporting our surviving and thriving, and the willingness to be in the unknown and not know what comes next. But along with that, we do also need support. So thank you for any support that you're able to offer.
A few people ask what the year-long program is too, and I put the link, but I'm not sure which class is the year-long you were referring to.
I was referring to dedicated to the Dharma, but people can look on, I think in the website, I mean, it used to be, and I haven't looked at this recently, it used to be that there was a section called Buddha's Path. And those would be the classes that teach you the fundamentals of, Buddhist psychology. And the dedicated to the Dharma one, it might be in the middle, right in the middle of it. I don't know, but you can find out. Oh, it started in March. Okay, thanks, Laura. So it probably will go. Is it going till March? Anyway, March isn't so far away.
It's done. It's 9 months.
Oh, it's 9 months. Okay, so maybe there's another one that'll come soon. Great, thank you for that. Okay. And there are other classes that have finished, and they will begin again in the new year. We are about to have a new year, and I want to wish you all a happy new year. This year has to be happier. It just has to be. I spoke about the vaccinations coming, and somebody took offense and wrote, I'm never coming back to InsightLA. I don't believe in the vaccination. And I thought, you know what? My dad was a public health doctor. I believe in the vaccinations, but you can still come to InsightLA, even if you wholeheartedly disagree with me. Just take what you like and what works for you and leave the rest. So let's just sit for a minute. So this is the end of a period of study and practice together, and it's also the end of a year of Sunday morning sitting group together. And we traditionally, it's called dedicating the merit. We offer whatever has been good and supportive and helpful to us in our practice. We share. We do this imaginative act of sharing with all beings everywhere, without exception. Oh, may we and all beings have a safer, healthier, and more joyful new year in 2021. Yeah, sign up for Lisa's New Year's retreat. Pace yourself with it, be gentle, and take care of yourselves. I will see you next week. I'll see you next year.
And
And remember to stay for breakout group if you want to, and everybody unmute yourselves. Yeah.
everyone unmute, say goodbye. And if you want to stick around, we'll take a 10-minute.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All happy New Year.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Trudy, and everyone. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for practicing together. Thank you, Kathy, for moderating.
Thank you.
Thank you.